Hi guys, I'm Mr. American,
And I'm Miss Parague.
and we are going to do the reading for Chapter 2 in Island of the Blue Dolphins.
So chapter 2 begins on page 8. Captain Orlov and his Aleut hunters moved to the island that morning, making many trips from their ship to the beach of Coral Cove. Since the beach was small and almost flooded when the tide was in, he asked if he could camp on higher ground. This my father agreed to. Perhaps I should tell you about our island so you will know how it looks and where our village was and where the Aleuts camped for most of the summer. Our island is 2 leagues long and 1 league wide, and if you were standing on one of the hills that rise in the middle of it, you would think that it looked like a fish, like a dolphin, lying on its side, with its tail pointed toward the sunrise, its nose pointing to the sunset, and its fins making reefs and rocky ledges along the shore. Whether someone did stand there on the low hills in the days when the earth was new, and because of its shape, called it Island of the Blue Dolphins, I do not know. Many dolphins live in our seas, and it may be from them that the name came. But one way or another, that is what the island was called. The first thing you would notice about our island, I think, is the wind. It blows almost every day, sometimes from the northwest, sometimes from the east, once in a long while out of the south. All of the winds except the one from the south are strong, and because of them, the hills are polished smooth, and the trees are small and twisted, even in the canyon that runs down to Coral Cove. The village of Galisat lay east of the hills on the small mesa near Coral Cove and a good spring. About half a league to the north is another spring, and it was there that the Aleuts put up their tents, which were made of skins and were so low to the earth that the men had to crawl into them on their stomachs. At dusk, we could see the glow of their fires. That night, my father warned everyone in the village of Galisat against visiting the camp. The Aleuts come from a country far to the north, he said. Their ways are not ours, nor is their language. They have come to take otter and to give us our share in many goods which they have and which we can use. In this way shall we profit. But we shall not profit if we try to befriend them. They are people who do not understand friendship. They are not those who were here before, but they are people of the same tribe that caused trouble many years ago. My father's words were obeyed. We did not go to the Aleut camp, and they did not come to our village. But this is not to say that we did not know what they did, what they ate, and in what way they cooked it, how many otter were killed each day, and other things as well. For someone was always watching from the cliffs while they were hunting, or from the ravine when they were in camp. Ramo, for instance, brought news about Captain Orlov. In the morning, when he crawls out of his tent, he sits on a rock and combs until the beard shines like a cormorant's wing, Ramo said. My sister Eulape, who was 2 years older than I, gathered the most curious news of all. She swore that there was an Aleut girl among the hunters. She is dressed in skins just like the men, Eulape said, but she wears a fur cap, and under the cap she has thick hair that falls to her waist. No one believed Eulape. Everyone laughed at the idea that hunters would bother to bring their wives with them. The Aleuts also watched our village. Otherwise, they would not have known about the good fortune which befell us soon after they came. It happened in this way. Early spring is a poor season for fishing. The heavy seas and the winds of the winter drive the fish into deep water, where they stay until the weather is settled and where they are hard to catch. During this time, the village eats sparingly, mostly from stores of seeds, harvested in autumn. Word of our good fortune came on a stormy afternoon, brought by Eulape, who is never idle. She had gone to a ledge on the eastern part of the island, hoping to gather shellfish. She was climbing a cliff on the way home when she heard a loud noise behind her. At first, she did not see what had caused the noise. She thought that it was the wind, echoing through one of the caves, and was about to leave when she noticed silvery shapes on the floor of the cove. The shapes moved, and she saw that it was a school of large white bass, each one as big as she was. Pursued by killer whales, which prey upon them when the seals are not to be found, the bass had tried to escape by swimming toward shore. But in their terror, they had mistaken the depth of the water and had been tossed onto the rocky ledge. Eulape dropped her basket of shellfish and set out for the village, arriving there so out of breath she could only point in the direction of the shore. The women were cooking supper, but all of them stopped and gathered round her, waiting for her to speak. A school of white bass, she finally said. Where? Where? Everyone asked. On the rocks, a dozen of them, perhaps more than a dozen. Before Ulape had finished speaking, we were running toward the shore, hoping that we would get there in time, that the fish had not flopped back into the sea, or that a chance wave had not washed them away. We came to the cliff and looked down. The school of white bass was still on the ledge, glistening in the sun. But since the tide was high, and the biggest waves were already lapping at the fish, there was no time to lose. One by one, we hauled them out of reach of the tide. Then 2 women carrying a single fish, for they were all of about the same size and heavy. We lifted them up the cliff and brought them home. There were enough for everyone in our tribe for supper that night and the next. But in the morning, 2 Aleuts came to the village and asked to speak to my father. You have fish, one of them said. Enough only for my people, my father answered. You have 14 fish, the Aleut said. 7 now, because we ate 7. From 7, you can spare 2. There are 40 in your camp, my father replied, and more than that of us. Besides, you have your own fish, the dried ones that you brought. We tire of that kind, the Aleut said. He was a short man who only came to my father's shoulders, and he had small eyes like black pebbles and a mouth like the edge of a stone knife. The other Aleut looked very much like him. You are hunters, my father said. Go and hunt your own fish if you are tired of what you are now eating. I have my people to think of. Captain Orlov will hear that you refuse to share the fish. Yes, tell him, my father said, but also why we refuse. The Aleut grunted to his companion, and the 2 of them stalked off on their short legs across the sand dunes that lay between the villages and their camp. I just want to rest on that for a second. That's kind of a picture, isn't it? Stalked off on their short legs. Okay. We ate the rest of the white bass that night, and there was much rejoicing. But little did we know, as we ate and sang, and the older men told stories about the fire, that our good fortune would soon bring trouble to Galisat. So that's the end of chapter 2. And as you can see, that relationship continues between Chief Chowig and Captain Orlov.
This time he seems more like second in command, third in command. Not himself, of course. He didn't go talk to him, but representatives, right. We can almost say, right. To speak for him. And what I sense is the village had this good fortune happen of this white sea bass that they noticed that they happened to get. And much to our knowledge, from what we can see, is our tribe is keeping a good eye on the Aleuts and what they're doing, the Russians that came to their island and what they're doing when they hunt. But then it also seems like the Russians are keeping a close eye on them as well. That's how they knew they had all the fish.
Right.
And from what I can see now is the Russians that came here and kind of went on their land, which they did give them permission. They can do that. They did say that's okay.
Well, they said they could camp there.
Yeah, they said they could camp there. It sounds like they're doing it against their will.
Right.
Now, just think that they should share everything that they get with them.
Right.
And if they don't, it's looked at as a problem.
But they're not there. I mean, they are there for the sole purpose of these sea lions. And that's,
sea otters.
And sea otters. That's it. And now they want half the fish that are collected.
Which they didn't help to get at all.
Right. And they start out asking for 2. But they asked for 2 today. How many do they want tomorrow?
But remember, it started out with they wanted half.
Yeah, they wanted half, and they decided to take 2.
So they only
but you know
2.
what? I mean, it just seems like the next day when Karina maybe goes out and gathers food for the tribe, are they going to want some of what she gathered?
Right, almost like it's expected whatever you have that we get too.
Right.
So.
And they're not part of the tribe.
No, not at all.
So it does introduce another area of confrontation.
I mean, real life connection. Imagine if someone moves in your garage and you say it's okay for the next 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
you go out, you work your daily job, you
Mhm.
bring home money, you bring home food for the grocery store, and they expect, I don't know, half the hamburgers you make for dinner that night.
Or worse yet, you walk into your living room and the TV's gone and it's now been relocated into the garage because you weren't using it through the day, so they decided to just move it into the garage. And now you can watch your TV in the garage where they're staying.
So imagine how the natives to this island feel right now with this group of Aleuts, Russians, moving in and just kind of make themselves at home.
Very much at home.
There will be a worksheet uploaded with questions that go along with this. You can attempt on your own. You can re-listen to the videos, of course, as many times as you want. Comments are always appreciated. Tomorrow we will post a video going over the questions and some guidance to help those that could use a little support.
So try to do what you can on your own, and then tune in to just kind of sharpen your answers and participate in adding to what you already have written down. And we'll see you then.
Let us know your opinions on chapter 1 and 2. What do you think? How do you feel if you were in Kamar's position?